o'clock, so we'll rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will go to the executive session tonight to consider the employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility under Wisconsin statutes 19.85, burn 1 parentheses to consider a high school special education at risk teacher, volunteer high school football coaches, part-time middle school cross-country coach, head middle school cross-country coach, sick days for non-administrative salary personnel, and unused personal days. We don't have any guests or comments tonight. Is there anything anyone wishes to move from the consent agenda? If not, that is approved by consent. And we'll move to administrative reports. Mr. Hills.
Thank you. The only thing I want to take a moment is just to thank Mrs. Wiesner. We had the field day, and there's a lot of prep that goes into that. She got here early to set things up. It was a great experience. Fortunately, the weather was a lot better this year than it was last year, where everybody was kind of freezing and ready to come in. So it was a lot of fun. It was a great way to end the school year, and I just wanted to thank her for the time and effort that she put into preparing all of that. So.
Ms. Margaret?
Yeah, I just want to highlight that it's we're halfway through summer programming already. It goes so fast.
Yes.
You know, so it's hard to believe that we're halfway through with all the preparation that kind of goes into it. But it's joyful. The kids are really having a great time. The staff that are a part of it are enthusiastic, bringing some new things, to the kids and to the classroom that they're not able to do every day. So it's really fun. And then other things that I'm working on is just increasing parent engagement here at Sevastopol in the next couple of years. I think it'll be as many parents and guardians that we can get through the door. And one of those opportunities is through the parent cafe model. So I've been working with the administrative team to come up with some relevant topics that will really speak to our community, and really hoping that we can deliver some quality program to get some folks through the door. So that's what I'm saying.
I'm glad to see that's coming back. I've had a lot of positive feedback in the past about parents who participated.
It is. It was, we had it, we started, and then COVID came, and obviously we tried it virtual, and that didn't work. But now's the time to bring it back. So it's enthusiasm for it. And I thank the administrative team for helping me with it, for sure.
Thank you. And if anyone has questions on Mr. Schaefer's report, you'll have to direct those to him.
The only thing I wanted to add to that is I did get feedback from folks regarding the high school graduation. It was obviously a wonderful celebration, but I did hear from several people concerns about the parking lot afterwards, with kids all over and little kids all over and cars trying to exit the parking lot, and concern that somebody might get hit. So if there would be some way of having them outside, having graduates outside without having a potentially dangerous situation. I don't know if it could be coordinated.
I can't think of right now how to do it, but we'll coordinate this.
But just a thought for next year, because I did have several people express concern about that. Everybody's in a good mood and they're moving around and they're not always paying attention, and there were a lot of cars trying to get out.
Okay.
Is that a question that popped in my mind when you were doing your report? When you talked about the family engagement? What's as an older the decline of the PTA programs, but we don't have
Our PTA had a very limited number of parents that participated in it anyway.
So what happened?
6 or less.
And it was really a fundraising group.
They didn't have any.
It wasn't a traditional.
They didn't
PTA.
have.
I agree with that.
Right.
It's always been fundraising.
what one would think of. So what are the avenues for interchange between the school? Because if anything, it seems that's lacking.
Well, ask Keith, he's got kids in the building. How's the contact with the parent, with the teachers?
I mean, organized programming from the schools.
I mean, they have conferences twice a year.
But that, but I'm,
They're accessible if we need them. I mean, it's not really.
I think because of email these days, there's so many emails that fly back and forth that you don't have to have a formal come in and,
Right.
I don't know.
I guess I was asking with the decline of PTA, which was in the old days, it was a form what a lot of parents would come to that, or the mom, because there was and they really got involved in how the school operates, and sponsoring programs, became very intertwined with the school. One of the big things that I've seen since I've been experiencing today's public school system is there's a distance relationship between both of the parents and the school. And I'm just asking, what mechanisms, if any, are there bridges to be built to get some of that influence, or that, so parents really know what's going on? Or do we?
Under positive circumstances, rather than waiting until there's a blow up about something.
Correct.
But I mean, I think there's different avenues of that. I think the PTA might have been back.
Well, when the last dinosaur
Well, I mean, I'm just
died.
saying maybe, and I can't speak, I wasn't involved, but as mentioned, it was a small group of people doing a lot of fun, work on, burnout, whatever, and they just, so I mean, they did do good work when they were there. I mean, the kids got a shirt and everything at the start of the year, and then they did positive things. It's just, but I mean, now there's different avenues of.
Yeah, the PTO today wasn't like the PTA you're referring to.
Back in.
And now I think we have more dual income families and such where they're not as available.
Yeah, so I guess I go back to my question. So is that a need? Is there a need that we don't have that connection back with families? And are there best practices out there, what schools have done to kind of bring that back? In a different, not maybe PTA, but in other ways and things.
I think maybe the start of that Parents Cafe.
Right, that's right, that's Dawn and myself.
Yeah, I think it would be great too, to promote it as much as we can. I mean, traditionally, what I've done in the past, there was maybe 8 families that came.
How many?
8,
8.
right?
So there's
So
600
we provide
kids.
the childcare, we're going to provide a nutritious meal.
That'll bring people,
Yes.
bring meals.
And as much as we possibly can, promote it on Facebook and on ClassTag. And I think to answer a little bit of your question, there's so much technology that teachers and families use right now that the face-to-face doesn't happen.
Right, that's what I'm saying. There's other.
I agree with that, like there's ClassTag, there's Facebook, there's all of
And
these
the way they
things.
did good work in there.
And it's instant
stuff.
communication, it just is not what it has looked like in the past.
And when school does have an event, when you have that arts and
Fine
music
arts
night,
night,
that
literacy night.
literacy night,
Mhm.
and some of
Open
those
house,
things,
yeah.
that's mostly elementary, I think, a lot of it. But it's a lot, parents come here.
For that, yeah. It's a
I
good
don't
turnout.
hear.
And I have seen an increase in some of our parent volunteers too. I think if parents do want to come in and be a part of the school, they're welcome with open arms.
So I think that what a lot of times organizations do, whether it's educational, they don't invite them. They're not invited. They don't feel invited. Just a philosophical thing to think about. So, anyway.
We have an opportunity now for an invite. I'd like to see where that goes. I think we all would, we've all worked on some topics that
And I don't want
that are.
to beat this to death.
Well, I think it's a topic that is brought to the forefront now for everybody to think about if there's some other ways.
And is there a way to find out best practices in other places across the country?
Absolutely.
Anybody have questions they want to direct on the AD report, the gifted and talented report? Hearing none, we've got a report from Mr. Lippy on
The budget
the
changed.
budget.
Since then.
I guess we can talk about that when we get to, when we get to it.
Sure.
And his meeting with the superintendents.
And then I was at the WIA meeting, it seems point today, talking to my colleagues there too. It Same thing with staffing, especially the hard staff positions are getting more and more difficult and without hunting right now. That's what it is. But every industry is doing the same thing too, so we're no different.
I don't have anything on the president's report. Committee report, you should mark Monday, September 4th, as an event here at school. It's Labor Day. On July 1st, the school district will kick off its 100th year with a press release, and so like you will talk about it on the radio show, and they'll start with some Facebook history posts about the school history and student life, leading up to that event on that date, which we'll probably need some volunteers for. It'll be from 1 to 3 in the afternoon. It'll start in the parking lot, front parking lot over here. A few short speeches. One of the, Mr. Mr. McMahon, the former superintendent, will do the welcome. The other one will do a kind of farewell welcome into school. I don't know if we have the, we have 2 keynote speakers that will speak together, that if we got approval from both of them, it'll be fantastic, because they've got they're good speakers and they have a long history with the school. So I don't know if we can say their names.
Can we say?
It's Mike McMahon and Heather Spetz.
Oh, that's awesome.
They're both alumni. Mike taught Heather. They're both long-term employees here and have been involved in a lot of different ways, and they'll come up with something. They'll have a great, so that won't be very long. And then people will be invited into the school for tours. The National Honor Society
We'll be giving
is
tours
going
of
to
the
give
building.
building tours. I call it the Mike Madden history video. We'll play it here. And that was the video that was put together before the old school was taken down. And then people can go out to the athletic fields where we'll serve them hamburgers and brats and hot dogs. And we're looking for some music. Cheap, no charge, and just a social time. So mark your calendar for that
This
day.
is September 4th.
4th,
It's
Monday,
the month, it's
Labor
Labor Day.
Oh, it's Labor Day.
We were gonna do it on Sunday, but then, I can't remember who contacted me and said, a couple people said, if you do it on Sunday, people are traveling that day. By Monday, they're back home. Kind of settled, it might be a better day. So we'll see.
It's called Centennial Celebration.
Centennial, 100 years.
Yeah, and Marcia Schultz, Lynn, and Samantha Dwardle headed a fundraising campaign. They sent letters to some businesses, and the 75th anniversary had a long list of even just community people donating money, because there will be some money for food and banners and miscellaneous things like that. I think they've got a shirt planned for the kids at the first start of school with the logo on.
When can we
Mr.
start
Ellis
using,
knows about that, I
when can
think.
we start using that new logo?
July 1.
July 1?
Yeah, so that's it on that. Budget report?
This year's budget you have in front of you. If you go down this Fund 10, our general fund, this is the revenue year to date is $4,000 over $7 million, and you'll see the expenses are at $7.7 million. You need to remember that we have some more payroll still coming out of this year's expenses. We also have the taxes. We have 25% of the property taxes still to come in, and some claims, federal claims to come in, which will take, even though the year ends June 30th, they'll come in July and August. So that's the gap, but the gap will become smaller as that revenue comes in, because our revenue coming in will be greater than our expenses for the remainder of the year. And then we have a single sheet that looks like this on your table. This is the 23-24 preliminary budget. It's very preliminary because the state hasn't decided what they're doing yet. Teachers and staff have put in a request for their expenses. We know our estimated payroll at this point. The revenue is at 10.2 million and expenses are at 12.0 million. I know that the governor is looking at $325 per pupil increase. That's not included in here. So that should be about $150,000 to $200,000 more. And the special ed from the state should be up. We went with the old rate. I'm not sure exactly how that's going to pan out because we get about 21% of our special ed covered currently. It's supposed to go up statewide to 33, but that doesn't mean it'll all trickle at every district equally. So we got to see how that unfolds. Plus with the expense side, I'm going to go back and look at some areas, especially in Dan Katrina's maintenance budget, see if there's some items I can trim out of there. And what was the other thing? Special ed per pupil. Oh, ESSER 3. Okay, so we're ESSER 3 will fall in that because we've already, there's 3 rounds of ESSER, and in this current year we've already sent in, so we've claimed all of 2. One's already been gone last year. 2 is in this, all in this year. Part of 3 will be in 2022, 23, and part will be in 23, 24. And then ESSER's done. There's only 3 rounds. That's it. So Carl and I continue working on it, but I want to give you a preliminary where it's at. So.
Any questions, anything else on that? Or any questions from anyone? Hearing none, we can go to the facilities report.
Facility, the gym floors were refurbished. I haven't
Both of them?
Yeah, they both got done at the same time because it's cheaper to have both done while the guys are here. Yeah, so we did it that way. The sign company is working to get the permits from the county to put the sign out front. In July, the district office will get renovated and we'll move down to the high school library for a while. And big projects right now. Dick Weidman and Mike Madden are working on the trails behind the school, and Dick is also mowing the Eco Lab for the cost of gas. That's pretty good. Yeah, those projects come out of Fund 80, so that's good. And I think that's about it for building projects.
Okay. Any questions on those? I don't have, do you want to go over that before it goes today?
Sure. Last year we had every month a different curriculum area come and present. I thought for this upcoming year it'd be nice if each club came in. We have, like forensics, robotics, journalism, our SAGA, FFA, NHS, Student Council, Project 180, SAD, Multicultural, our Leadership Academy, Gaming Club, DI. If we rotated those through and they could come and present, because I don't think everyone knows what Project 180 does and all the various ones, so I think it'd be good if they came and showcased what they do. And I think they can involve kids in that too, so you see what kids are doing.
I would definitely want to hear from the kids.
Right. So that's just a recommendation if that's the direction we'd like to see go. And I wouldn't do it by the 1st September meeting. It depends if the kids they got to get them organized, but yeah, and start in the fall.
May have to do more than one meeting, or we're going to have more
Maybe
meetings.
some, or they are to cover 2 years, yeah.
Yeah.
But
As long as it takes to get through.
yeah, okay.
Let me add, I still like at certain times of the year, have a report on reading, writing. Basic cornerstones of it.
You want that just in the principal's reports? Since that's the curriculum and they cover that?
With emphasis on it.
Like when the map testing comes out, give you the data on that?
Testing scores?
Yeah, it seems like that's.
Well, Mrs. Margraf, going to talk about when
Because
the
I
map
don't think
testing
that, or
occurs.
maybe I'm wrong, I get an old fashioned between reading and writing with particular cornerstones of what we're here for. As you get ready, and Sevastopol as a whole is doing very, very well. I want to make sure we continue to develop going forward.
Well, we do map testing and PALS test, well, it's not PALS anymore, what's the new one?
It's the new one, it's going to be called Fast Bridge. So we're doing Fast Bridge, and that's the new PALS, which is a phonological test for our pre-K through 2nd grade kids to identify any reading needs. We do MAP testing, which stands for the Measure of Academic Progress, and that's 3 times a year. And teachers use that data really pretty religiously for intervention criteria, whether students are going in or out of intervention, and that's both reading and that's both math.
Do we ever have a presentation on maps?
I don't think we have.
And I think that you said that the teachers are doing a deep dive into the analysis of the data.
They do.
And I would really like to hear that. You know, it's one thing to hear the average scores, but are there some students that were missing? I guess that's what I like.
Like for maps, we hear about maps testing, but to see really how they take that student
how
by
they use
student,
that data.
student by student in September and then December or whatever they do it, that's one form of testing that we.
They do a good job, I would say, to communicating that to parents. I remember always getting a report, from
They do.
parents, and it
Yeah.
was nicely done.
So how we use map data and how we use that data to identify needs, okay? And then FastBridge, which is the new PALS, which I
Well,
think
tell them why
Mr.
tell them the grade levels.
Yep, that's pre-K through
Yeah,
second.
they don't know that yet.
Yep, that would be FastBridge, and I think Mr. Hiltz would agree to and add something to this too, but that's foundational for reading skills,
Mhm.
right? That is where you're going to find it. Early intervention is the key, and that's why not MAP, but the FastBridge, which used to be called PALS, but it's now FastBridge. And that's really works with Deb Hurst and reading intervention too, and they really look at that data together. So,
In addition to that, the map testing is going to be split. We used to do map testing all the way across the grade levels, but that lower section is also going to switch over to using STAR testing. It's very similar, but it has some benefits to it. Some of the online programming that we do, the STAR testing, the information from that feeds right into that stuff so that it will program some things directly for those students.
So I don't know if that's one presentation or if that's broken up into a couple, 2-3 presentations because it's so deep, but what,
yeah, I think if we get the right people here, I think we can cover it. So I'm writing down here how we use the data, how do we identify the needs, but the most, how we use the data, but the other key pieces, what services do the students, what do the services look like once they're identified? Because I think that speaks to what the question that you have, how are we keeping pace and how are we making sure that we're keeping.
Okay. Yeah, where I'm coming from is on NWTC's board, one of our board members who's only on for one more week and then her term's on. She came out of the Greenview Public School system and did a lot of work in this area. And she made a statement that just caught me off guard, and I remember it, and I think now we lose track of it. I think about it all the time. When you leave high school, when you leave grade school, if you can read and go out in society, if you can read at a 5th grade level, you will be successful. You will be able to hold on a job, get a job, earn an income, have a family, and all that. If you can't read at a 5th grade level, you're going to have problems the rest of your life. And so I always thought like that as a target, because not to get into long that, but at TC, we see gobs of kids coming there with their high school diplomas in one hand, and illiterate in math and illiterate in reading in the other hand. And it isn't just an exception. It happens all the time. So that we spend hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in special programming to try to get these individuals up to that level. And not really, because we don't, my question as a layperson sitting on this, how can you get a high school degree and not read at 5th grade level? To me, it's totally impossible. But it seems to be, in the politics of education, it's an area they don't want to go to. We'll just take care of the damaged goods when, I'm not using that pejorative term, but we'll take care of the damaged goods when it gets here. And I keep on saying, stop. Why don't we as an institution go back and tell the various educating areas that you're producing a lot of damaged goods, but you're giving them a diploma. And society thinks upon a diploma as certificate. So that's why I really get hot to trot on the area of reading, because they're outnumbered. they can read at a 5th grade level, you will survive in life. You'll be able to make it. So, I don't know if that's all poppycock or not, but I think it's probably close to the truth. And that's why I push that issue so much, because I just see that at the other end, literally millions of dollars we spend. Because
So I don't understand why NWTC can't come back to Sevastopol, for instance, and say, look, we had these 3 kids come in that
I have
couldn't
spent,
read to level.
I am known for bringing it up at least twice a year, that we at TC have all the information about all the schools in northeast Wisconsin and how well they're doing at educating people. Why don't we go back and tell them they're not doing a good job?
If they want to do a service to the kids.
No, I think it becomes political, and I'm not going to go on a line with
Okay.
it. But anyway, because I think a lot of the issues come out of their largest district.
We'll do what we can here, and
Right.
we'll start with these
And I'm always proud of
presentations.
Sebastopol, and I'm proud of what Gibraltar does, and I'm proud of what the peninsula here does in regards to getting. But I just want to make sure we keep thinking that's an important keystone of success.
This presentation, October, November? This
We'll arrange it, we'll arrange it in
Can we talk
regards to
about that?
ones, because we're not gonna have like multiple presentations, I will be here all night, so let's work on it together. I'll come up with a schedule.
Administrative team.
We'll come up with a
Figure it out.
rotation.
Okay, so we have some legislative items here. The budget, which nobody knows what's going to
Well,
happen.
the email is blowing up this week.
bet.
And it changes hourly. As we just found out, Jerry and I were talking before the meeting that there was an effort to remove NWTC funding from the property tax roll and instead have it funded by the state legislature. And that was blowing up all kinds of controversy today. So Jerry emailed Joel Kitchens, who just sent a note to Jerry saying it's dead. So that's a good thing.
Was this just NWTC?
No, it's the
or
whole
the whole
We're
throughout?
going to have the whole property tax for all the tech schools.
All tech colleges in the state. So the concern with that was that the legislature would do the same thing to the technical colleges as they had done to the UW system in the way of getting the funding. And as Jerry indicated, we in our local communities know best what the needs are for employees, not Madison. And you mentioned Fincanteri and the needs that they have for welders. Well, if that had to go through all the layers in Madison, you wouldn't have your welders for trained for Fincanteri. So that piece is dead. That's good. The biennial budget is not at all to the liking of public school educators. Kyle, you mentioned the revenue increases and...
Yeah, the revenue increase was $325 per pupil,
Yeah.
which is way below the rate of inflation.
But it does, it does not keep up with inflation. Met with a board member from another Northeast Wisconsin district today, and she said, thankfully we made as much noise as we did, or we probably wouldn't have even gotten that. The real winner in this budget is the voucher schools. They are getting tons of money, a huge increase. And
It looks like it's going from $9,045
Yes.
up to $12,765.
Yes.
So they're getting, I don't know.
And they're getting increased funding for special education students in the,
$3,700 per child,
Yeah.
$3,720.
how the governor agreed to that, I don't know. Given where we are with the inability to keep up with inflation, with a very small increase in special ed, the small increase in English learner student education, it's really unfortunate but we have to keep hammering at this. The reading instruction, the concern with what is being proposed is not so much the phonics method, but the retention of students, because the research does not prove that retention is effective. Certainly everybody wants to bring kids up to the reading skills that they need, and there are ways to do that, and no one is objecting to building in all of those ways of addressing that, but what they are objecting to is the retention of students. The Office of School Safety, which provides the tick line, plus training and crisis intervention teams throughout the state. At one point, the funding was completely gutted for that. Senator Jacques' office indicated that that funding has been restored, at least at the time that he sent that, and that there would even be an increase in funding. I did respond to Voter Voice, which WASB sends out to all of us as board members, and I did respond to that indicating this is no time to pull funding for school safety. And I did get a response from Senator Jacques' office and also Representative Kitchen's office. And then the district administrator.
Do we receive money on this school safety funding? We don't receive anything for our SRO.
No, the SRO we pay to the county.
So we don't get anything.
They're not paying for it.
But we all have access to the tip line, and all our kids have access to the tip line.
We're not, it doesn't pay for our SRO.
And they get thousands of calls, and when they get a call from a Sevastopol student, for instance, or a Sevastopol staff member, they will notify the school immediately, and they will also notify the sheriff's department. So in that way, we do get money, and there is
one
funding.
I think
Public
we've had
or
two in the last, one or two in the last 3 years. 1 or 2 calls.
And there is funding for training available for law enforcement as well as for the staff. So, and
This
then
doesn't look right based upon everything that's going on in school safety, the program, whether it's a good program or a bad program. The optics, I don't think are good. Cut it at this point.
oh gosh, no. And then the administrator certification, there is some real concern in that area because if this proposal goes through, school boards would be able to hire someone with no DPI certification as the superintendent. In other words, someone who has never been a teacher, has never been a principal, has never been a superintendent. It could be the local banker, it could be anyone that the board decided to hire. My concern on that is, particularly for small schools, that might work for Milwaukee because they have layers and layers of administration. It would even work perhaps for Green Bay because they have staff in staff development, they have staff in curriculum, they have staff in finances, they have all these people, layers of people, that the superintendent doesn't have to be responsible for that. But you as a superintendent here are responsible for all those areas.
Yeah, it's an oddity. I think it came about because we're hiring more teachers in an emergency license. And so they said, okay, what are we going to do? There's not enough superintendents to go around, so where can we get them from? They said, well, let some businessman run the school. I think is what they're thinking.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to gain ground or not. I don't know. There's not much we can do.
I can see where it doesn't work for Sevastopol or Kiwanee or,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I
less than
can see
1,000 kids or less than
in those large
5,000.
schools, it's a business. They've got the educators underneath. They're running a business.
Yeah, it's an oddity. I think it was knee-jerk because they don't have enough of us to go around, just like we're putting teachers in an emergency license. I think that is their way of looking for someone to do it.
Yeah, but what they need to do is
Send
look
it back
at
to school.
the problem down the pipeline
Well, they gotta send them back to school then, put on an emergency license and say you gotta complete your degree then.
and make it an attractive job for people, so. But anyway, that is just some of what is going on, and every day I get reams and reams of what is going on out there.
Yeah, today was the bad news when it went from 9,000 to over 12,000 for voucher schools.
Yes, yes. That was the real.
They're valuing public or private school kids at a higher rate than the public schools.
Yes.
They are looking at bumping the districts that are under 11,000 up to
Right, and
11,000.
that's a good thing.
That's a good thing, but it doesn't help us at all.
No, it doesn't help us, but,
And it doesn't help the districts that were at 10,750
Right.
because they're gonna get $325
Right,
increase, now they're gonna get
exactly.
less. So it's,
exactly.
I don't know,
But,
it's a mess.
you know, we have to keep fighting the good fight on behalf of our kids and keep letting the governor know and our legislators know. And Dan Rossmiller said at our last WASD meeting that advocacy is a contact sport.
Then I think we should have a letter to the governor from the school board
Absolutely.
saying, this is
I see no problem with that.
whatever we think it is. I mean, we can talk about it. We should have direct contact and say, this is why this is not in the best interest of public schools.
If he signed it today to go up to 12.7, I want to know what he traded off for, what he gained in the trade. He must have done something.
We've already had guest speakers.
Something else had to happen, because I can't think that'd be a solo.
So he signed it today and
It was supposed to happen.
it's a done deal.
Well, they initially back and forth, I think it might be.
Well, I think that it doesn't hurt to send a letter.
Yeah, there's gotta be something that happened in the budget that we don't know.
Yeah, and
It's
let him know
tit
how
for tat.
dissatisfied we are. This is not the promise that the governor made
Oh,
I'm so sorry.
when he just first started.
that's why there's something else there that we don't know
I'm just,
about.
it floors me.
Well,
I think he thought this was the only way he could get anything.
yeah,
Well, he did do
He's-
the best for all people.
the legislator is third
I mean, I
opposite.
get it, I get how, why it happens, but that's,
This is
So-
the thing. You know, we're looking at the world from this little island. The whole issue with vouchers in those schools that take kids, that's a big city issue, a battle with Milwaukee. Because they did everything they
It
wanted.
started there,
I know,
yes.
they did everything they could to stop kids from going into the private school systems out of the failing public school system in Milwaukee. And they prevented their parents that couldn't get their kids in, and they wouldn't let them leave. And, you know, and my heart goes out to them because they said, you gotta keep the kids in the school, the whatever
So
school.
wealthy kids could go to the private school, but poor could not.
Right.
And
So that was just-
15% of the student population is sitting there in LPS.
Yeah, and this is part of the whole, the politics of how that evolved.
Well, it took 20 years because then it went down to Kenosha and Racine, and now it's gone statewide.
Statewide,
And
and it will increase.
it's gonna be, there was a study that just came out today from Stanford. And the joke was, if Stanford knew the results, they probably wouldn't have done the study. But it showed across the country the results of what were schools called? The vouchers, the charter schools, the results of charter and private schools versus the public school system across the country over this last year. The kids in the charter schools and private schools have on an average of about, from an educational point of view, like 18 to 20 some days more of education compared to the public schools. And it's this ongoing drumbeat. If you were to look into the tea leaves, it's not going to happen a lot of life. There eventually will be, in some states, going to start doing this, where the dollars from the state are given to the parents, and you can't use it to buy a house or anything. Those hot dollars are for education. You go get your kid educated. So the dollars will follow the students, not the dollars won't go to the school system.
Well, that's what this $12,000 is.
Yes.
I know, but I mean, I'm talking about for all students. That's
The other issue up here is you don't have a choice for
Right, that's right. So
private
it's not a
school.
real issue for us.
So there's no private school to send your kid to unless it's a boarding school.
Right.
Yeah,
But in reality,
that's
with the whole charter,
right. That's
I know I'm in the
not
minority.
realistic.
I don't-
Yeah, right, and yeah, that's your closest option,
But
right?
it probably costs that much, walking for a charter school to exist. And if you don't have charter schools, the kids are being forced to go back into the film because the state, for some reason, doesn't do anything about the Milwaukee schools.
And the private schools can pick and choose their students. Public schools
True.
take all students.
Yeah, your special ed or your behavior issue, they go out to private school, that's right.
That is right.
So we're really getting shortchanged.
Mhm.
Well,
I think we should let the governor know.
Okay, so is that a motion then, to send a letter to the governor?
I would make that motion.
is there a second?
I'll second.
To send a letter to the governor expressing concern over the increase in voucher schools from $9,045 to $12,065.
765.
$765, whatever you said. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Then we have to approve the student handbooks. You want to take those one at a time?
I think you know that.
I will ask Mr. Schaefer about this, but we talked about SAD on that group. He has adding the chess club, but removing SAD. It says above that the group no longer exists.
I think sad
So
for
they
the
must
Project
combine
180,
with
but I don't know
Project.
that we have a chess club around here, I don't see it.
Which is good if they're combined because that's one advisor instead of maybe two advisors. So does anyone have any other questions or concerns about the student handbooks, or is there a motion to approve the student handbooks?
I would move to approve the student handbook as presented.
I'll second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion is carried. And then we have our WIAA membership renewal. Accept, approve.
It's an annual event and it checks off the extracurricular sports we offer here.
I would move to approve the WIA membership renewal for 2023-2024.
I'll second.
Questions or discussion?
Is that membership based on size, or is that everybody's based the same?
Is that student size, student count?
Or the number of,
I think it's per sport you offer. The more sports you offer, the more you pay,
regardless of size?
right?
Oh, yeah, on the form, it's got all the sports.
Yeah, it has all the
Student count,
sports
it's got all
listed
the
and it
sports,
depends
but,
what you do. Yeah.
Did we vote on that, Chris?
No, not yet.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We have the resignation of Shelley Stenzel, the high school middle school secretary. I understand, I've been working on her teaching degree and got a job teaching Spanish at Sturgeon Bay.
I would move to approve the resignation of Shelley Stenzel.
Questions or discussion?
What if we don't second? What if she has to come back?
If they don't approve it, what happens? Is she bound by contract?
There are sometimes I'd like to do that.
Your resignation has been denied.
Decline, I mean, can we deny someone their resignation? Do we have that authority?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion is carried. And then Megan Horvath, the middle school cross-country coach.
Make a motion to approve the resignation of Megan Horvath as the middle school cross-country coach.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. That would conclude our regular business tonight. I'll look for a motion to convene to executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Jerry?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried at 7:24 p.m. And we're back in open session, so we'll move first for a motion on the high school special education at-risk teacher. His name was Steve Mantum.
I would move to approve the hiring of Stephen Umentum as the high school special education / at-risk teacher.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Is there a motion on the 2 volunteer high school football coaches?
I'll make a motion to approve the hiring of Chris Shue and Scott Walker as volunteer high school football coaches.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. The part-time middle school cross-country coach.
I would move to approve the hiring of Amy Thomas as the part-time middle school cross-country coach.
Second.
It's Katie.
Katie.
Katie?
Katie Thomas.
Oh, I'm sorry, Katie.
Yep.
Was there a second?
Second.
Jerry, second. Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Head middle school cross-country coach.
Make a motion to approve the hiring of Sherry Stenzel as the head middle school cross-country coach.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Then sick days for non-administrative salary personnel.
I would move to approve that sick days for non-administrative salary personnel be comparable to the support staff sick days.
Second?
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Our next meeting is July 19th. And if there is nothing else, we'll look for a motion to,
Any building and grounds particular Dave or two of them is the sound system in the gym. I've got 3 pieces back. One, they're going back to the drawing board. One was just an estimate on a proposal, give us a proposal to handle the whole project. The other one was the whole project, but we got those guys too. So I'll probably done this summer meetings.
is there a motion to adjourn?
I would move to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned at 8:19 p.m.